Hello, and welcome to the Original Remake Podcast, a show where we take the role of Hollywood executives, shamelessly exploiting your nostalgia for money. My name is Pat, and I'm here with Amy,
Hello.
Andrea,
Hey.
and Nick.
Oh, hi.
And today we are discussing the 1985 science fiction classic Enemy Mine. All right, so Amy, normally I jump in and ask you why you wanted to remake this film and what you thought of it, but I think it's pretty clear that everyone in this podcast right now thinks this is a stone cold classic film.
Piece of trash.
Oh, does someone disagree?
Classic sci-fi, and if you could see me, I'm air quoting because I feel like this is more of a character drama movie. It has the potential.
Yeah,
it's remakeable.
So before certain people on this podcast come in and tell us why we're wrong, why did you pick this film to remake, and kind of give us your history with the film and why you like it?
Well, history with it, I really don't know. It's one of those movies I remember watching as a kid thinking I liked the relationship between the characters. You would think that I'd be more interested in movies that would have more action, but it definitely was interesting.
We're born in the mid '80s, so we would have seen it for the first time in the mid '90s. So we were kids.
On VHS.
Basically, this movie is about the human race and Drac race who are in a war. These two fighter pilots end up falling into this planet with breathable air. So
miraculously,
but there's other things on the planet that keep them from surviving easily. They have to join together and work together.
So to jump on to my side of things, I saw it probably around the same age as you, in probably at some point in the 90s when I was pretty young. Might have been later in the 90s. This is a film that I think if you give credit to the fact that it wasn't a huge budget, it was over budget, the special effects obviously from that time don't hold up. But the core concept and the core story and the characters, I think, really, really hold up. And if you look at the state of sci-fi in the 80s, we're just coming out of this era of classics with Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke and Star Wars. And so space opera is starting to be less pulpy and starting to come into kind of the mainstream as a legitimate science fiction kind of form. So this is a film that I think fits into a classic category in that it's not necessarily seminal, but not far off. But I'll stop now.
Pat's gone all like, I'm gonna let you finish 3 or 4 times now. I honestly think story-wise, this was a good movie.
Oh my god.
But
I can't. I'm gonna vomit all over myself.
That's it. Like the acting, the costumes, what little CG there was not great. There was one set that was phenomenal, and all the rest looked like they were paper mache from a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
From a viewing experience, it was rough.
From a viewing experience, I wanted to gouge my eyes out.
Okay, that's going a little far.
I appreciate
that's going a little far. We are spoiled by the CG that we can see today. We're spoiled by things like Marvel, so you got to suspend a little bit of that.
My favorite movie growing up was The Never-Ending Story. Okay, so I am with you on we're spoiled with the CG because that was my favorite movie.
Well, the director of this movie did The Never-Ending Story.
Really? Why didn't he learn?
The person who came in to fix the film, the original director, was actually fired. And the reason and this goes into why the special effects are half finished, because they literally ran out of money.
And they are literally half finished.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I want to kind of quickly dive into and cut this movie some slack when it comes to the special effects because
Give it a break.
yeah, it's the mid 80s. There's no CGI. You've got to do it all practically. They don't have like Star Wars money.
I mean, George Lucas didn't have Star Wars money either.
Yes, but you haven't seen the original Star Wars before they did the digital remake.
Yes,
when
I have.
we were
yes, I
young.
have.
Oh, yes, I have.
I have that on VHS, sir.
It was janky, but it was
Yes.
great.
Yeah, but it's janky, and they had the money to do it.
But Chewbacca had an actual full face where his lips moved with the prosthetic.
Yes.
The Drac had a hole in the costume where dude's face hung out.
Listen, I agree. I agree.
One of the budget issues with this movie is that the first director, he went nuts. Like, I remember reading something where the sets were so overblown and they spent all this money to make it look like a completely different planet only for it to look like Earth. They just went overboard. So they redid that. They had done Drax's makeup or Jerry's makeup like almost all the way to finished, but the new director came in, said he hated it and scrapped it.
Wow.
Yeah.
that's
So
where it all got
they
wasted.
were extremely over budget and then it failed in the theater. So they kind of started with two broken legs.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want to be clear as well that, I see most Marvel movies. I see most movies that come out, to be honest, at some point. There's a lot of special effects these days that are not up to scruff. And Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, has a decent amount of like jank CGI in it.
Oh, wow.
The first one
like-
did
Well,
too.
the first one did too.
Yeah, and it seems like they run into the same issue where like I've heard stories of them overworking their graphic designers and such and things like that, and it's pretty clear in the final product that there are some things that like they just don't have the time to put in the detail. I've recently seen Avatar 2, and you can tell the dude spent a decade making it. The CGI is flawless. I mean, it is
if you
insane.
spend 10 years working on the sequel, it better be mint.
Yes. The technical marvel, pun intended, is incredible for Avatar. Marvel don't have that luxury. They pump out a movie every 3 or 4 months. So far as giving movies some slack on like special effects, I'm the same way as today as I am about watching older movies. You know what I mean? If the story is good, if the characters are good, I don't care if some of the CGI is a little uncanny valley.
But I feel like that the story wasn't great and the acting
No, I disagree
wasn't
with
good.
that. The acting was okay. The story I think was great. And even though it was our first time watching this movie from 1985, I'd seen this story.
Okay, I retract my statement. The story is like the hero's journey, right? It's kind of a boilerplate formula. You just plug in the different characters. It's like two characters that hate each other. They're stuck and have to figure out how to communicate and get along.
Except this was the first.
I don't know. Was it?
As far as I'm aware. I
mean,
could be wrong.
I think it's the first one in space.
It's the first sci-fi one,
Right.
we'll say.
And
we've seen this story in sci-fi. We've seen it in Star Trek. We've seen it in Stargate.
right. And I'm okay with, like, I get that this movie had to walk, or more accurately, like trip over itself constantly in order for other sci-fi movies to run and do this trope, if you will, correctly. But I still feel like that there were things that this film could have done to make it a little more palpable.
Of
like,
course.
Yeah, I agree. There were parts of the movie that just dragged.
Yeah.
And we're not coming to this movie with rose-colored glasses.
Right.
like we've never seen it before. I haven't anyway.
Yeah, I do think there are like the characters having to survive on the planet for me, and we'll get a little bit into this when we talk about the changes we want to make, but it wasn't super compelling to me that those scenes where they had to learn to survive the meteor strikes or the alien that tries to it's definitely not a Sarlacc that tries to grab.
Oh
Dennis
yeah,
Quaid.
not a Sarlacc pit.
Not a Sarlacc trademark.
Yeah. I feel like that this movie, can I wax poetic about theater and acting for a second here?
Absolutely.
Okay. I feel like this movie suffers from one of the basic acting principles, like from the lack of that acting principle, which is, as an actor, you have to enter your scene with a purpose. You have to have a goal in that scene to understand why you're there. And you have to, and some acting schools will tell you that you have to know what the moment before was, so that you know what you're about to do when you go into that scene. I felt a lot of this movie was watching these two characters, and I'm like, I don't know what you're doing here. I don't know why you're doing this. I don't know why you care. I don't know why I should care. I feel like you have no purpose and you're walking around without a reason. Maybe we could have spent more time, honing, more time in rehearsal. I don't know. If you realize that the makeup's going to be crap or that the sets are going to be shit because you have no budget, at least like watch a tape on, acting or something, right? Like, I don't know.
I agree with you, and I think that's specifically true for Dennis Quaid, who seems to be either obscenely angry or laughing, like in comedic scenes, but not a lot of time is spent with his character acted subtly, right? And
right.
There's something about a good actor can portray emotions without saying words, right? Their face can give off kind of an instinctive feeling about them, whether it's a twitch or a frown or something like that. And it's the acting in this is not that. He's trying to project his feelings through the words he's saying, and not kind of give
the subtext.
Not give a lot of subtext in his performance.
Yeah. And
there was kind of like that knee jerk acting.
Right.
The over the top, I've really got to sell this kind of acting.
Right. It's like, these words read this, so I'm supposed to be yelling. Not, well, these words say this, but what am I really trying to say here? And I feel like the guy who played Jerry,
Lou Gossett Jr. I thought he did
Lou
good
Gossett
though.
Jr. With what he had, I feel like he did a fairly good job, and he didn't have a lot to work with. And even with that makeup, I could still tell that he was trying to emote and trying to, give some reason for being. But I just did not see it with Dennis Quaid's character. And it's just like, I feel like you should almost know better.
I don't know if it was intentional. I saw it a little bit towards the end when he started changing into a human that cares about this little boy. At the beginning, he was just a pilot who wanted to hurt the enemy, find a way out. And by the end, there was some attempt. I don't know if it was intentional on the writing. Definitely as much as he could with the acting.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
There's potential with that a little bit.
What I would say in hindsight, though, is it kind of feels like they found a nice steady state for the end of the movie, and then they were like, but we need to show growth.
Yeah.
So I need you to overact the first half of the movie now.
Or I need you to show me these emotions or something. And then he just kind of was like, okay, guess I'm supposed to be angry here. But like during the entire middle of the movie, there was no like internal conflict. There was no struggle. It was like, just you should have, why did you do that? You could have died. And it just is very flat.
I will give Dennis Quaid the benefit of the doubt also, in that this film was probably rushed from an acting perspective as well, and trying to get their scene shot. Dennis Quaid has been good in other plenty of other films as well. So, plus his brother's an insane person and he's not, so he gets that kind of like bonus point for not being clinically insane.
A little background. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe they just really needed someone who was attractive for the 80s and say, okay, let's just see if that works.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
They gotta sell the movie.
You're talking about Lou Gossett Jr. dressed up as Drax, right?
Well, don't forget.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget Louis Gossett Jr. and Dennis Quaid were in a movie together before this.
Really?
Jaws 3D.
Wow.
What?
Where Jaws 3D, the shark went into SeaWorld and attacked the amusement park. And I'm not lying to you.
Was that the original Sharknado?
Probably. Jeez. And I've never seen it, thank God. But I did read a little bit of that, and they still chose those two together. So
I just kind of want to circle back to the story being decent, because I agree on the story side of it that it's good. And like I made reference to how we've seen this story before. We've seen it in episodes of Star Trek. We've seen it in episodes of Stargate SG-1. Like, this is not a new story. And it was kind of cool to see where those TV series pulled this from.
Yeah.
In fact, the episode in Stargate SG-1 is actually called Enemy Mine. It wasn't until a Google search afterwards that I actually put the pieces together. But then, like, I remembered the episode. They had just discovered Shaka, and they were trying to figure out, how do I communicate with this giant beast-like creature? And in typical sci-fi human ways, they assume that it must just be a beast. And no, it's an intelligent creature that you can learn to communicate with. But yeah, it ends up being the same story. I think it was way better executed in both Star Trek and Stargate. We all know Darmok and Jalad.
At Tanagra.
One thing to remember is that in those TV shows you have established characters as well going in.
True.
That's true. So they already have that.
Yeah, Enemy Mine has to establish both characters, both sets of characters as well. And you can see this even in modern times. I mean, I just read a book last year called Project Hail Mary. It's an Andy Weir book. It's pretty popular.
That book is really good.
Yeah. And I believe Netflix is going to make a film out of it. And there's no conflict between the aliens, but it's very similar in we have to learn what our differences are and what our similarities are so that we can communicate properly, work together properly to survive and can complete our mission. So even today you see very similar concepts used. And I don't know if there's like a classic novel that perhaps Enemy Mine took its story from. I probably should have researched that because I do like classic
took off
sci-fi.
of an actual short story sci-fi book called Enemy Mine.
Oh, okay.
They portrayed it almost to a T. I know the original director did want to change up the ending in the original movie, but the movie did basically follow the short story. And I mean, let's be honest, the movie itself, you take out a lot of the dead silent pin drops, it's pretty much a short story. It's
True.
not that long.
True.
It should have been a half an hour.
I think they should have developed the characters a lot more.
Exactly.
I mean, we open on a couple of flyboys talking all their space pilot jargon and jumping into a fighter jet and let's get them. Let's kill
By
the
space
enemy.
pilot jargon, you mean blatant misogyny.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, for the 80s, that's just what you did, right?
Yeah,
like, if
I guess.
It wasn't in a movie, you were doing it wrong.
And by blatant misogyny, right in the beginning, there's the scene where the guy's talking about like a woman that I don't remember if he likes or doesn't like, but he describes her as a white balloon, which just
she's like an overweight nurse. Is that correct?
I think so. I don't know. He dies like right after spoilers,
Spoilers on a movie from 85.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spoilers. Only one human successfully crash lands on the planet, and it's not that guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, this feels like a common thread that I bring up in a bunch of the movies that we remake. But why should I care about the main character?
Mm-hmm.
I have no backstory on him. I don't know his intention, his purpose, what kind of guy he is. I get 30 seconds of superficial asshattery.
He just
crashing a space plane, and then the story that the movie shows us.
The only thing we know is that he hates the Drac because. Why? What's the reason? Because. And you could even
don't
said
ask that.
What?
Don't ask that.
Don't ask that. Just don't think about it.
Don't look behind the curtain.
And you could have said something like as simple as, oh, well, he could have had exposition with the other guy saying, well, why did you join the military or whatever? Oh, well, to fight the Drac. My mother's family and her family and her family
We're on a space freighter
and the Drac
blew it up,
wiped them out and
or something.
and I've been looking to get revenge, and the way I'm going to do that is to kill every single, or whatever. It's not that hard.
Give me some kind of emotional tie-in to the character. Give me a reason to care.
Mhm.
I disagree, actually, because
Really?
one of the things I like about the film, and I think this is integral to its message, is you got to think 1985. This is towards the end of the Cold War. The wall is not long for this world. The Berlin Wall, that is.
Got to be careful when you're describing walls.
That's right.
Especially these
see, kids, putting up walls is not an original idea. Let me give you some historical examples. Spoiler alert, none of them have ever worked.
Nope. That's why we take history, kids.
And 2001 and its sequels kind of get into this as well. A Space Odyssey, Arthur C. Clarke. You're looking at Russians, or Russians are looking at Americans as the other, right? And it's not about them as individuals. We take their humanity away, and it's just them as a collective. Even though in that country, there are people just like us with the same problems we have, and the same thing for them. We have the same problems they have, and so the hatred is like manufactured.
I completely agree with that.
I don't, to a certain extent, because, for example, 2010, the year we made Contact, that movie, like, you already know we're in the Cold War, and through the course of the movie, you get to know the people on the Russian spacecraft. You learn who they are, and they have conversations with each other. You learn that they're just like us, except on the other side of the Iron Curtain.
I could even accept that, but I still need to know my side.
Yeah, I have no problem giving him more character, because you're right. The beginning of the film is there's some fighter jets. We're gonna get in our fighter jets and we're gonna have a space battle. And that's the first time you meet the characters, him hopping into his ship. There's no context. You can even add in the context later when he's talking to Jerry about what is the cause of the conflict and hatred.
Yeah,
right?
or you can do it that way.
Yeah, they touch on that in the film, right? The idea that Dennis Quaid's character, Willis, thinks that the Dracs are starting a war for territory, but actually Jerry tells him, actually, no, we lived here already, and you invaded us for the resources because you're greedy. And so being confronted with that, I think, is a big part of the movie, like being confronted with, like, hey, like, every government who tells you they're the good guy probably does bad things too. And you can add his backstory to that kind of learning about, okay, what are the reasons I'm doing this? Does that make sense?
And even though the acting wasn't, I guess, great for Dennis Quaid, I kind of liked it, at least the beginning. I didn't like the character Willis Davidge very well.
I didn't either.
But
I don't think you're supposed to.
I don't think about it. Random pilots in any type of war. Are you going to like every single one of them? No, they're fighters.
He is the protagonist, you could argue.
I agree with that as well. But give me a reason to care about this one guy specifically, especially if I'm going to follow his story. Because if I'm going to be watching this guy grow and develop emotionally and as a person, I should have some foundation in why I care for this guy in the first place.
And also, we were told via voiceover that Willis, or whatever his name is, Willis, had to sit through Jerry telling him about his entire lineage. I would think that it's only fair that we get some more backstory other than that dumbass story that he tells to Jerry. I don't even know what the story is. It's not that important to remember.
I was actually going to say that next. We get more history and more of a reason to care about Jerry than we do the backstory on Willis.
It's pretty offensive to our Lord and Savior Mickey Mouse, but okay.
Oh, they did.
What?
Lord.
No,
Maybe that's why I like that movie growing up. Nothing else.
I agree that you do, but I think, again, the protagonist is Willis, right? We have to learn to like Lou Gossett Jr.'s character. We are coming into the film from the viewpoint of Dennis Quaid, And so I think it's fair we have to learn about Lou Gossett Jr. character because he's the other for the
Sure.
film.
I think we should know a little bit more about Willis, and we should be invested in Willis, and we should feel the same thing Willis feels when he discovers a Drac on the planet, and we should go through that same emotional journey that he goes through in learning that Drac aren't evil, just existing creatures,
Especially
that they
since
have a story.
we learn that.
I feel like it was a third party detached on that I was
Yeah.
just kind of watching someone else's story.
And
I
if
wasn't
Willis,
invested in it.
right, and if Willis is supposed to be our protagonist, like, you kind of almost end up rooting for Jerry because he's, like you said, he says that, you know, we've always lived here. And then we find out later that he's pregnant. And it's like, well, crap. You're going to have a baby. How am I supposed to hate you now? I mean, I know that's stereotypical, but like, you know.
That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie when Dennis Quaid is like, well, don't look at me. I didn't get you pregnant.
Yeah, that is funny.
So I think we're in danger here of skipping ahead to like kind of the things we would change about the film. So do we want to jump before that into kind of the casting side of things? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
It'll be a
sure.
short list. There's only really 2 characters.
Yeah, I mean, almost everyone else in the film doesn't need to be cast. The child Drax doesn't, you know, it doesn't really need to be cast. It's really just our 2 main leads that we need to cast. So, Amy, this is your film. Why don't you lead us off? Why don't we do Willis Davidge first? Who did you pick for him?
I picked an actor who I thought was a very good character actor. And I know you don't agree that he would be good in this part, but I chose Timothy Chalamet.
Chalamet, I think.
Timothy
Chalamet.
Chalamet.
Timothy.
Timothy.
Yeah, he's got a weird. He says it. It's
I think
pronounced
it's just
strange.
Timothy.
Yeah, I
It's
think
not.
it's Timothy Chalamet. No?
Say it right. Timothy.
Nothing against
He does
He's
pronounce it differently
very-
than we're saying it, but
Oh,
it doesn't matter.
I mean, he's American. I think he's a good actor. Maybe not so much portrayed as the pilot hero type of guy, but he can be sort of a smart ass. He can kind of be a little bit ruthless.
Yeah, I'm coming at this choice from where I know him from, which I know he's kind of been in some romantic comedies or what have you. The place I mostly know him from is Dune. In Dune, I think his character is a lot different than I would want the character of Willis to be in this film. He feels, as an actor, a little too stoic to me, as though I wouldn't be able to kind of read his emotions as much. I'm looking for someone who can pull off the facial aspect of the emotions of what's going through Willis's
Get
head,
it.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
could
get it.
see that, but I could also see that working for the character, at least in the beginning.
I want him to
and-
have more depth.
Yeah, I could see that, you know, when he's being a pilot, he's hyper focused and he's, you know, typical warrior type. And even when he gets to the planet and he tries to kill the Drac by setting the pond on fire and stuff like that, I could see that working for him. And then we get invested in that emotional journey of discovering who your enemy is and finding out that they are actually a friend and all of that. I don't know, because just like you, my only interaction with this actor is Dune.
And Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up.
And he's kind of a stoner.
Yeah, he's definitely not a character you want to.
Okay. I forgot about that and Don't Look Up. So yeah, I think he has the range to do it. There's just not a lot of examples. He's relatively early in his career. I don't know. I could see that being a decent pick.
All right, Pat, what do you pick?
I went with an actor who I absolutely love. And again, I was looking for someone with a lot of range and who feels like he can communicate to the audience non-verbally. I went with Oscar Isaac from lots of things. Star
Dune.
Wars,
Yes.
also Dune, which he was fantastic in. Moon Knight, where he plays
Oh my
two.
God.
This might be a
Two
little spoiler, but he plays actually 3 separate characters.
God.
Fantastic in that. Everything I've seen him in, he's good. Even if the film is like it's fine, I always think his performance is incredible.
I agree with you on range, but I think the humor in the original film falls flat quite often. There's some serious attempts, but there's just no good delivery. So I went with Sam Rockwell.
I think he's a great actor. I love Sam Rockwell.
I mean, the crazy guy from Green Mile, Hammer from Iron Man, he's got a lot of range, and he definitely has a bit of a comedic backdrop that I think would work well for him.
Nick, have you ever seen the film Moon?
Moon. No, I have not. Is that another Sam Rockwell movie?
It's a Sam Rockwell movie. He's basically the only person in it, I think.
Okay.
Moon is definitely a really cool indie science fiction project, and Sam Rockwell does a great job in that he's the only person on screen, so he has to kind of talk to himself and the computer, and there's some comedy in it as well, but it's still, a serious movie. It's not going to blow you away, but I think it's a great advertisement for what Sam Rockwell could do in that role. He's just a great actor. Well, I've seen him. He was in See How They Run this year, which I saw, 3 Billboards, which was great. He's just, man, I think I prefer Oscar Isaac, but I think I would be super down for Sam Rockwell as well. All right. So with that out of the way, Andrea, go ahead and what's your pick?
So my pick for Davidge was James Marsden.
From X-Men?
Yes, from X-Men, from Sonic the Hedgehog, from Westworld.
Yes, that's what I know him most
from. There were a couple other things that he was in too.
R.I.P. Westworld. R.I.P.
Yeah.
Yes.
There were a couple other things that I know I've seen. He's kind of like that face that sort of blends in, but he has like a wide range of things that are serious and things that are funny. And
yeah,
I don't know, I felt that he could like, and some of the things on his like filmography, they're like, they sound, and I remember them I feel like if they were B movies, like My Little Pony, A New Generation. That's on here. So like, I feel like that he could be a good fit in that he
done a few things.
Might bring some more gravitas to the role and be a little bit serious, but also have that humor to back it up.
Listen, if you can be in Sonic the Hedgehog and My Little Pony, I mean, you've got range. So,
oh yeah, and then also play, a robot that gets killed almost every episode.
That's fair. I don't know. Again, going back to range, not to keep focusing on it, I don't know if he has the range that I would want, but I do like him. He's one of those actors that, like, I'm never sad when he gets a new job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, oh, that guy. I like that guy. And we could root for him, We wouldn't feel annoyed by his presence.
Yeah, like you're rooting for him, but you know concretely that he will never win an Oscar for anything.
Yes. Which, sad face. Is, Sonic the Hedgehog totally warrants that.
I mean, that performance.
It was so bad. Oh my God. The movie was entertaining, but
Yes,
we're not talking about Sonic right now. Sorry.
All right. So let's move on then to Jerry. I can call him Jerry. That's his nickname. Amy, why don't you go there and pronounce his full Drax name for us?
Oh, great.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to do it.
Little backstory on the original actor who played Jerry, Louis Gossett Jr. He was told that he can make his own twist on the character, and he added all the little idiosyncrasies and the voiceovers, the gargling. He went up to the director and he's like, I can do this. I want to make this character more reptilian, believable. So to just say that this actor played the character well, I think Louis Gossett Jr. was probably the one main reason why I was, drawn to this movie. He played a different character than I thought he would. But back to my pick, his full name is something I cannot pronounce. Jerba Shigna?
Close enough. Better than I would have done.
We'll call him Jerry. Who's my character that I picked?
Excuse me, Amy. I need
Yes.
you to now also recite the entire lineage of Jerry in front of the council of Drax.
I
Guys.
can't. It's almost like a Chewbacca. Do you think they took that off of
Can
Star Wars?
I interject something here?
Yes.
So I'm looking at I'm looking at Lou Gossett Jr.'s filmography, and he was in Stargate SG-1 for 4 episodes, and he
right.
played a character named
Garrick.
Garrick.
But
The
not
momentary lead.
but not
of the-
Jereba.
I forgot about that. I
Um,
forgot he was in there.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
He's
So
the,
maybe he was
yeah.
typecast after this movie. You think?
No, because right after this movie, he became one of the stars of Iron Eagle
Oh yeah, because I remember him from that. Yes.
and Iron Eagle 2,
Yep.
Iron Eagle 3, Aces, Iron Eagle on the Attack. He did some Iron Eagle movies.
He is an accredited actor, I swear. It's just from the 80s.
No, I actually remember him as soon as Lady brought it up here. In Stargate SG-1, he was Garrick, the then leader of the Jaffa Free Nation, turned Ori.
No way.
Season 9 and 10.
I'm gonna have to rewatch that.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
remember this.
Yep. And then he repents at the last moment, and because he goes against the Ori, literally catches himself on fire.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I do remember this, but not as vividly as I'd like to.
It's a good subplot.
Oh, okay.
Angry subplot.
Mm.
He plays the role very well. But anyways, I digress.
All right. Well, Amy, tell us who you picked then.
I picked an actor who I thought would be very good in it, but I cannot pronounce his name to save my life.
Idris Elba.
Idris. For the character
Oh.
of Jerry, I picked Idris Elba.
Idris Elba is amazing.
He's a good actor. I just think it fits.
He's done it before in Star Trek Beyond, I think is the
Which
film.
I didn't know. So I
Oh,
guess
wow.
that's a little.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. And I mean, he's just such a terrific actor. I think a lot of people would say The Wire is one of the best TV shows ever made. He's obviously in that for several seasons. If you've never seen the TV show Luther, that's one of
Oh,
my favorite detective
yeah.
shows. And
Oh,
there's actually a movie coming out on Netflix in March,
I'm
a
excited.
Luther movie. So I'm really excited for that. But almost everything he's in, even if it's bad, it kind of elevates it. You know
see
what I
our
mean?
previous
I think I just-
entry, Prometheus.
Yeah.
Oh, plug.
I love Idris Elba. I read some terrible TMZ type information a bunch of months ago where people were like, oh my God, is Idris Elba going to be the new James Bond? And I was thinking to myself, please God, make it happen. Ugh, that'd be
He's
amazing.
probably too old now, but it would be really cool.
I feel like he could work with prosthetics, makeup, still pull a character through all that.
I think you pull it off.
And yeah, he kind of seems like a warrior to me. So those are my 2 picks.
That's fair. He was great in The Suicide Squad, which is the good version of The Suicide Squad.
He was also great in the movie. Wasn't great, but he was great in The Dark Tower.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I agree. In fact, that's
Sad
a perfect.
that the movie wasn't great, but he was amazing in it.
Yeah, and I love the Dark Tower book series, so I was super disappointed. But I agree. I thought his performance was really good. So I think that's a great pick. I'm gonna go last on this because I've got a first very specific reason. So who wants to jump in next with their pick for Jerry?
I guess I will. I picked either Doug Jones or Nicholas Hoult. I couldn't quite decide. They are both experienced in a lot of prosthetics. Doug Jones was in like The Shape of Water or something, the M. Night Shyamalan film that tanked. He plays.
No. Time out. Flag on the field.
What?
Do not mistake the master that is Del Toro for M. Night Shyamalan. That is a Del Toro
I thought
film.
I thought that was M. Night Shyamalan.
And he's in a bunch of Del Toro films. He's in Hellboy as the water guy, probably basically the same character.
Well, what I know him from is Star Trek Discovery, and he like
through.
and he like puts his all into that, and like Guillermo del Toro, I'm sorry, he puts his all into that, and I just felt that he might be a good pick. I don't I hadn't seen him in any other films other than Discovery, which is probably not a good reason to pick a person.
No.
So as a result, I picked Nicholas Hoult. He plays serious stuff and plays really funny stuff. And
I was about to say Warm Bodies was not serious.
no, that's funny.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, you
That's
said
funny.
he plays really serious stuff. I'm like, oh,
I believe he has. I remember doing my research on this.
Mad Max Fury Road, come on, fantastic.
But
Yeah,
like
he was really serious in that one.
He played a great role though.
he played Beast or plays Beast in
Oh yeah, that's a semi-serious
X-Men,
role.
and it's pretty much all prosthetics.
He was in a great film that we just saw called The Menu.
You keep talking about that movie, and
I like
wanted
it more
to
and
see
more
it,
the more I
but
think about it.
I keep wanting to watch it, but Nick can't deal with gore. He was in the movie Equals, which I thought was really good.
Nick, there's only one. I'm gonna spoil something for The Menu. It's not gory at all. One finger gets cut off. That's it. You can definitely watch this film.
Not sure if being punked.
No, really, like there's almost no blood in this film.
Okay.
You could stub your toe and it'd be about as much blood. There
Okay.
is some death, but there's not a ton of gore.
Okay.
I feel like you also have to have a kind of sense of humor if you're going to wear that much prosthetic makeup
Yes.
and act like a lizard and take yourself seriously or not.
And carry a child.
Yeah.
I think of your two picks. I think Doug Jones is actually a fantastic choice.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I'm only coming from Saru, but
Mhm.
even in just Star Trek Discovery, like you can see some serious range there.
Right.
And the way he flawlessly deals with the prosthetics, in everything that he's been in, or rather, Star Trek Discovery, like I think that would translate very easily. He's already halfway to being a reptile in Discovery.
Yeah. And he's so tall. I feel like that they'd have to sort of modify.
Yeah, he's 6'4".
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't
He's
realize.
6'4" and he's 6'4" and very thin is the thing. That's why he looks even taller than he actually is.
Huh.
Yeah.
I think Nick, we're over to you for Jerry.
For Jerry, okay. I picked Danny Putty.
Pootie. I think it's Pootie. I don't know.
I think it's pretty.
From Community, right?
I don't know.
From Community, and what was it that I just saw him in? It was almost like a secondary role.
He had a cameo in Captain America.
Yeah, he did.
The Winter Soldier for like 30 seconds.
He's in Mythic Quest, which I've seen the first season of.
Yeah.
Good.
That's quite good as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking him because basically Abed from Community, like
What?
put him in the prosthetics, and you got the other half of the comedic equation.
I'd pay to see that film.
Right? you put Abed from Community up against Hammer from Iron Man. Come on.
I say Abed from Community up against James Marsden.
I haven't listened. Community is one of my favorite sitcoms of all time. It might even be the number one. I've seen it like 7 times.
They're working on the movie now.
They are. I think it starts filming this summer. And I don't know if I've seen enough of him from anything else quality wise to think that I would want him to play one half of the movie. I respect that choice, but I don't respect it as much as the Sam Rockwell choice. I think
6 seasons in a movie.
Yeah. But it's an okay pick.
I feel like that because like these picks have to be something substantial because they're literally carrying one half of the movie each. And when I was like trying to recast this, I was like, are we making this a better film, like a good film, or are we going to make this still campy and B movie like? So I was kind of struggling between the two.
I was going for good.
Because I think that's where my picks came from. Like they both could do either, I think, depending on the direction and the writing.
Listen, I want to interject here real quick because I think it's worth pointing out, and I think it's important. the original film's quality might be a little B, but it is not set out to be a B movie. It is not like Sharknado. It is very sincere. So in my opinion, and again, feel free to disagree. In my opinion, I think when we cast the film, I think we should cast it as though we're trying to update a classic film, not a kind of like B
Okay.
comedy. If that makes sense.
It
And
does
I'm
make
happy, you know,
sense.
so.
It inadvertently became a B movie when it tried to be a blockbuster film.
All right. So for my pick for Jerry, I've kind of gone a different route in that I've gone the old digital route. In other words, I look at, again, this is me coming within the last couple weeks watching Avatar 2 Way of Water, loving what Andy Serkis has done with Planet of the Apes films, where he played, can't remember the ape's name, but he played Gollum, he played Snoke in Star Wars, and I think instead of a costume, you just put the dots over him and you put him behind a green screen, and you have that Andy Serkis intensity added into a digital role. And I think if you look at behind the scenes stuff of like Avatar: The Way of Water, it is incredible how they make that film. I mean, it is in whatever else you think of the story or the characters, the way they make it and the technology they use is insane. And that's true for Lord of the Rings way back in the day. That's true for Planet of the Apes is an incredible film as an example of like what we can accomplish with CGI with humans as the actors, you know. So I went with Andy Serkis, but any actor who can pull that off, whether it be Doug Jones as well, whether you just don't put him in prosthetics, you put him, you know, with the dots over his face and have it CGI. I think you go full CGI and just work to knock it out of the park and not have it be subpar, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I have a specific actor, but if I have to pick someone, it's obviously Andy Serkis because he's a hero.
Yeah,
He's
so
a
I
great
could see
actor.
that.
He's a great director. He's actually done, I believe he's done some audiobook work for like The Hobbit, so you can have Andy Serkis read The Hobbit to you, which is pretty incredible.
What? I'm looking that up right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, that's my pick for Jerry, is just have us go on the tech side, but do it right, right?
Look at that. He has.
Don't do some like Transformers or Fast and the Furious jank CGI.
He also read The Sandman.
Oh, nice.
Very cool. I like that pick. I think that's a good one.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you. All right, so let's go to kind of the last, or almost the last kind of main segment, which is what are we going to remake, or what are we going to change about this film if we remake it? Amy, do you have any kind of starter comments on what you want to see remade?
Well, I think generally, just looking at other people's notes, I agree with the movie has a lot of voiceovers. I would like to make it into modern movie. This was made in 1985. Maybe pull a little bit more.
I think the audience, yeah, I think the audience is smart enough these days with science fiction where you don't need someone telling you what's happening and summarizing parts of the film. You can kind of have them grow closer over the scenes and kind of demonstrate that, right? Instead of having the, anyways, we became very close friends and I learned all about them.
I would show more of the planet's natural enemies. There was really only two.
That was, again, probably for budget reasons, but
yeah. There was only really two things that they were worried about, what we were talking about earlier.
The wildlife.
The wildlife, yeah.
Have it seem more realistic.
Yeah, and I really, one of the things I really liked is that bug creature with the shell evolved to live in its environment, right? The meteors don't hit it, so they build their shelter out of it. I want more of that. I want them to go all in on
about the
that kind of stuff.
together.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Exactly. And you can build character while you do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you can, like, I feel like if you took the the bad voiceovers, the money spent with the heavy sets and locations and put it towards things like that and better writing,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it would be a great movie.
Yes.
The ending is one thing that I would, it feels like the movie just stops, and then a voiceover like kind of wraps it up, and it's not even the original Dennis Quaid voiceover, it's some other guy that we haven't met or heard from before.
I
And it's
didn't
just
realize
like,
that.
yeah, it was rushed and awful, and it like
I
it
don't
cheapened everything else.
I don't mind the actual ending, and I would make it perhaps more, more scenes, but I actually think the climax in that mine
That's great.
complex, I would, I thought I want that kind of updated
Yeah.
a little bit, and I've written down here that I think Willis doesn't really like lead a slave, like he doesn't come in and be like, hey, you guys are slaves, I'm gonna free you all and let's go get my son. Like he has his friends come in and then like they help out a little bit at the end. You don't need the pilots from his space station to come back with him.
No,
Just have him leave, sneak in, start a slave revolt, and then find his son that way. And you can have kind of he commits himself to a righteous cause and just kind of gets on the same side as the people who are taken as workers
Wait, you're
and
saying
slaves.
you don't want the scene where he's shot and comes back to life miraculously? That
I
whole
think
thing can be
that-
taken out.
I think that
Yes.
that can stay in
No.
because you kind of
Really?
need it. Well,
No.
not
I don't
need it,
mind that
but
being in the film at all.
They
But I
didn't
just don't want
present
everyone
it
else to come back
properly.
with him.
he could
Yeah.
just not be followed. And I think it's more impactful if he leads the slave revolt. Like that
Yes.
tells you more about what has happened to his life in the 3 years.
And I think it's absolutely necessary to have that moment where he does get injured, does end up back on the mothership, does get patched up. I think that could be more development of his character, especially like I think the purpose it's supposed to serve in the movie is that no, I'm a changed person and I have different ideals now.
Yes.
And I don't think it really portrays that very well. I think they could do that a lot better.
By having him lead the slave revolt.
No, by going back, getting patched up, waking up on the space station and being like, yo, I gotta go back. I'm invested in something. I need to fix this. I need to do this thing. And everybody's calling him crazy, and he's like steals a space fighter and goes back to the planet. Not is backed by them, because that was just crazy talk to me.
That he does all that except
the stealing part.
he does
No,
steal the
he
spacecraft.
he steals it.
Yes, he shoots
like
out of
shoots, yeah, he shoots the door open.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he does steal
He
it.
shoots his way out.
The only difference that you're saying between like the only difference is that his friends don't follow him.
Yes. I would make the escape from the space station a little better. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
one of the things I would do is I would have his human counterparts tell him he's crazy for like developing these feelings for the enemy, right? And kind of have a little bit of that and kind of like have him sit down with like a psych person or something while he's
That
in the
would be
hospital
great.
recovering, and then have him make the more active choice to go back and escape, and then no one follows him because you wouldn't, right? Everyone else still thinks the Drax are just these terrible people and has no problem with them being slaves.
And you don't follow crazy people.
And you wouldn't you wouldn't be like, oh, my friend's crazy, I better follow him into certain death, right? Like,
The only reason you'd follow him is he stole our ship. We need to get our hardware back.
Right.
And that's kind of where I was going. Like,
yeah,
no, he's traitorous at that point.
yeah, and no one cares that
he
he's a
went
traitor, right?
AWOL.
They all just they're all on his side as soon as they get there, right?
Yeah, no, if
Right,
anything,
no,
they
that's
should
not
go
okay.
out and attempt to shoot him down.
Yes,
Yeah. And
that would
bring him
that would be
back with
great.
force.
Yeah.
And bring him back with force. He went AWOL, and we're reclaiming our hardware and putting him through trial. That's what we're
Yeah.
doing. He's getting court-martialed.
Right.
I agree.
Not, oh, hey, buddy. Oh, we're shooting enemies? Cool, let's
Cool.
do this. No.
Yeah, and
Oh, sweetie. No.
When I say fix the ending, I mean like the very end, like the
Okay.
last scene, because it just looks like a painting in front of a camera with a voiceover. And it's like, I want to see the reaction between him
You
and
wanna-
the Drac. I want to know more of that.
You want
Yeah.
a 6 hours director's cut of them reciting the entire lineage.
Hell no. But I want something a little bit more satisfying than a picture,
Yeah.
Yeah.
fair.
than
Yeah,
some
a
art.
picture that has the spaceship like parked in the
Yeah.
crowd.
Right.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right there on the like altar thing.
Oh my God, all
Yeah.
these people are here. Where'd they come from? Let me just recite this family lineage.
Yeah, nope, we're gonna land in a crowd
Yeah.
of people. That makes sense.
Yep.
But I love the idea. I love the actual ending of like this of Willis is the name is now that child's name, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So he's named after someone, and he will forever be in the records of the Drax people. He is a part of their legend now. I really love that poignant ending.
I do too. That's cool. But the way they did it was so just crap. We ran out of time. Let's figure something out. The actors are
And
gone.
money.
Oh God. Okay, let's just skip this guy.
We'll do a painting and we'll get this random guy to voice it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, I think a lot of us have notes down here, but in interest of time, let's just do a blanket statement. The special effects are terrible. The guns are literally human guns that are just painted different colors. The Drax gun is really dumb and should be updated. It's like a spiral glass laser gun.
It's a stack of anal beads.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's no other way to describe it. It's
Yeah.
anal beads in a cage.
So when he says stick him up, he really
Whoa.
Went there,
Yeah.
guys.
and just generally speaking, some of the special effects leave a lot to be desired. That's not to say that everything's terrible. The baby that comes, the baby they use, I thought was actually really well done. The special
Oh,
effects for
yeah.
the child. And some of the matte paintings are okay. They just, again, some of them are rushed.
the what paintings?
The matte paintings, matte.
Matt.
The matte
I think it's
paintings.
just Matt.
I'll say it over.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
This is
the-
part 2 of Andrea makes fun of how Pat says things.
It's all good.
I'm so sorry.
If we ever get to the part of like a Patreon and behind the scenes,
This is
Yeah.
the shit.
y'all doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
just
mean,
gonna I'm
the
just gonna
flip
say
has been
words.
switched. No, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna own that.
I'm not owning this one though. I'm cutting this part out. I'm just gonna
Oh.
start over.
Okay, that's fair.
The matte paintings are mixed quality. Some are quite terrible. Some are quite good. And some of them you can tell they just didn't have enough time to get them perfectly correct. So I think generally speaking, this film needs a visual upgrade, and I think that's fair to say for all of us. No one disagrees with that. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Including the costuming.
Oh God,
Yes.
yes.
I mean, everything. The spaceships look like literally fighter jets from Earth.
No, that's the messed up part, is they don't. They don't. They look like weird 3-pronged things. The Drac fighter ships look like something out of current US military.
Yeah, maybe that's why they picked it.
And
It's
it
like,
was
oh
super
well,
confusing. And like I didn't believe it, because when you're seeing the opening sequence, you just see 2 ships shooting at each other. But when you get to later in the movie, when Willis steals a ship, you're like, oh, that's not the alien one.
Oh, I thought
Okay.
I thought the human ships were the ones that looked like fighter jets for me, to be honest with you.
No, it's the opposite.
Okay, that's fair.
And actually, I think the Drac ships look a lot like the X-302s from Stargate, and perhaps more references in Stargate back to an enemy mine. I don't know. I could be digging here.
I think you might be digging.
Fine.
Okay, and then really the only other thing I had on my end so far as like changes is I don't like the soundtrack to this film very much. So I would update that, or maybe this is a film like a film we've talked about before, Failsafe, where maybe you don't have a soundtrack and you just put a lot of the work into the sound effects of the planet that they're on.
I
Nah.
would love to see them make that work. because for
Yeah.
you to make that work, for you to go without a soundtrack,
It'd have to be a really good story.
it's got to be a damn compelling story.
Yes.
And the interpersonal relationships between the characters have to be good enough to compel the audience to stay engaged.
I feel like Sci-Fi needs a soundtrack, though.
Failsafe did a damn good job.
Failsafe was not a sci-fi. It was like a historical
that's true.
fiction
It's a-
drama.
It's a thriller, really.
Hmm.
But still, like, I would love to see them try. Because
feel
even
like-
if they fail and then put a soundtrack over top of it, the effort that they would have to put into this movie to make it good without a soundtrack is next level.
I feel like not having a soundtrack would make it too serious.
Not if you put Sam Rockwell in there.
Okay.
You know what? I need you to go see the film Moon, but
Okay.
also I need you to listen closely to the soundtrack of that film because there are a couple tracks in there that are really, really well done. And sometimes I have this will tell you how much of a film nerd I am. I have basically a soundtrack playlist, which is kind of like my work play in the background
Ooh.
list, you know.
Let's be honest, it's your in the shower.
It's also in
background.
it's also in the shower. I'm driving like 8 hours and want the time to pass as quickly as possible. So it's just kind of like I there's a lot of like Trent Reznor type stuff on there, but the soundtrack from Moon I think is really good, and I think something like that would work for this film as well.
You would plug that into this movie? Potential remake?
Yeah, like not the exact soundtrack, but something along those lines, because it's a similar film. There's only a couple people on screen. They're working within their environment to kind of solve problems, that type of thing.
Moon from 2009.
Yeah, that's the movie.
Okay, I'll add it to the list.
It's really, really good.
Okay.
All right, so before we move on, is there anything else so far as changes we would make to the film that people want to talk about, or are we all set there?
We just got to make it better.
I'm all set.
So let's move on to the final segment then. Would we remake this film? As is tradition, Amy, since you picked this film, you're going to go last. I'm happy to go first because my answer is pretty easy. 100%, 10% this film can be remade. It's got a story that holds up. It's got characters that holds up. It feels like a seminal science fiction type of story. It's just all the stuff on the outside of the film, the soundtrack, the set, the special effects, all that stuff can be modernized, and I think that the film would be better for it. So I'm 100% in for a remake of this one.
I think it could be remade.
Yes.
I think,
Oh, you guys got her.
yeah. I think it could be remade. I feel like if you throw enough money at it, go on Netflix. I dare you.
I agree. I think it could be remade. I think it could be well done if they developed Willis a little bit more and gave it a budget and some oversight so that the budget goes in the right direction. I think there's a lot of potential.
Fair. And Amy, what do you think?
I would still want to remake this cult classic movie. I feel that the characters, it's a basic story of two enemies working together to find common ground with a little bit of twist to still want to pay attention. I mean, throughout the years, you can just tell people have remade this story multiple times. And I'm shocked that there has not been someone out there that has tried to remake this movie already with all of the remakes that we've noticed in the last decade.
That's a really good point. You'd think it would have been done by now because it clearly feels like that with all the other remakes and sequels and adaptation, like you would have thought that they would have gone back to the 1985 and list of movies or 1980s list of movies and just sort of stripped it for ideas to update.
I suspect many people have bought like the rights to remake this film and then they just kind of never get around to it. There's films like that, like the Highlander remake has been being remade for like 15 years and they've
like it's in development hell.
Yeah, there's always some actor attached to it. I think the newest one is Henry Cavill, which seems like it might get off the ground, but there's always like some actor who's hot at the moment getting attached to like a Highlander remake, or I suspect that's what this film is doing as well, where there's people, directors, studio heads, producers that want to remake this film, but just there's
It's
always
just
something
not
that
as
gets in the way.
popular as the Mario Brothers
Yeah.
remake, right?
Oh my gosh.
Which is
That's a
in the
great
process.
example.
Yeah.
It's actually funny that we're talking about that, because in my research I found a Wired article from a little over a year ago that said, Enemy Mine, it's time to bring it back. What gives? And obviously there's been no development or anything, and it's like a nerd's pipe dream writing on about this on Wired, but like yeah, the fact that this article even exists shows that there's some attention.
In the fullness of time, the remake of Enemy Mine will be added to the lists. That was me doing the ending of Enemy Mine, but for the movie Enemy Mine.
Too bad it's just a podcast. We could put up a nice matte painting.
A matte painting, yeah. It's true. Is this the first remake that we've got 4 thumbs up for a remake for?
I think it might be.
I'll see.
Oh yeah, failsafe, you're right.
Well, the women are 2 for 2.
Yeah, Nick, you and I gotta up our game.
Yeah. Figure it out, gentlemen.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Original Remake Podcast. If you'd like to provide feedback or have a question, please email us at remake.cast@gmail.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode.